Welcome! Last time we discussed C, BB spirit, C, spirit that is certain of itself, morality. Today we will take up C, CC, religion, and its three parts. A, natural religion, B, religion in the form of art, and C, revealed religion, and make our transition to C, DD, absolute knowledge. C, CC religion. 1. First, the spirit, religion, and absolute knowledge connection. In brief, at the end of spirit, we have absolute spirit, or God, as the only reality. Then we have the self-actualization of spirit, or God, in religion, but in the form of picture thinking. Finally, we have the perfect self-knowledge of God or spirit, spirit knowing itself as spirit, in the form of the concept in absolute knowledge. In more detail, as we saw last time, absolute spirit was the final result of BB spirit and the truth of all that has preceded. What this means is that there is now nothing but absolute spirit or God, or simply spirit. Remember, we are studying the phenomenology of spirit, and as Hegel says, quote, "Spirit is all reality and all truth." This also means that we are now compelled to enter that sphere which deals exclusively with absolute spirit or God and its becoming or self-actualization, namely religion. And religion, Hegel says, is the self-consciousness of spirit. And note, not our consciousness of spirit, but spirit's consciousness of itself. And this is because all that is spirit. It can even be said that at this point in the phenomenology, there is no longer human or our consciousness as opposed to spirit's or God's consciousness, but only spirit's or God's consciousness. After passing through a series of religions, we will arrive at the self-actualization of spirit or God in the revealed religion. We will have spirit knowing itself as spirit, but in the non-conceptual form of Vorstellung or picture thinking. Finally, we advance to spirit knowing itself as spirit in absolute knowledge in the fully adequate conceptual form of the concept, which brings the phenomenology to a close. As Hegel says, quote, "Although in revealed religion, spirit has indeed attained its true shape, yet the shape itself and its picture thoughts are defective. And then we must pass over into the concept." 2. Also, as we said, the key is there is only one spirit, and religion's perfection happens when it realizes that spirit in its own world, and spirit equals the world, and spirit in religion, spirit's self-consciousness, are the same. Religion being only a part of life, and hence in opposition to spirit in its own world. So, we move here from 1 to 2. From 1, where self-consciousness and consciousness proper, religion and spirit in its world are first separated from each other, to 2, the perfection of religion consisting in the two becoming identical with each other. Also, not only is spirit the ground of reason, self-consciousness, and consciousness, but religion itself, as Hegel says, is the ground of spirit and all preceding stages. As Hegel says, quote, "Religion is the perfection of spirit into which its individual moments, consciousness, self-consciousness, reason, and spirit, return as into their ground," end quote. This is the genesis of religion. These 4 stages belong to self-knowing spirit. Hence, the series of religions will reflect these 4 and their moments. 3. Even though we have all along been drawing an equation between spirit on the one hand and God, Reich Gottes, the kingdom of God, absolute knowledge, and the concept on the other hand, it is important that we have a clear idea of what spirit actually is, and according to Hegel's own statements. Thus, spirit is a unity in multiplicity, one substance as a community of I's, individuals, independent self-consciousnesses that in their opposition enjoy perfect freedom. It is an I that is we, a we that is I, end quote. It is this and no other I, and no less a universal I. It results from, quote, reciprocal recognition as an I which has expanded into a duality, end quote, and is that which has the certainty of its unity with itself in the duplication of its self-consciousness and in the independence of both. Finally, quote, spirit knows that the world is itself. Hence, spirit is the world, is all reality. Nothing but spirit exists, end quote. And this can be best expressed by Hegel's words at the end of B.B. Spirit, where he says that absolute spirit is simply, quote, the one God in and as his community. That is, quote, God manifested in the midst of those who know themselves in the form of pure, absolute knowledge, end quote. In sum, spirit is at the same time a unique individual, a this, yet an individual who is one and inseparable from all other individuals, who is also a we. Okay, the main points are: 1, religion is the self-knowledge, the self-consciousness of spirit. 2, there is only one spirit, and it gradually comes to know itself in the series of religions. And 3, the goal here, as in reason and spirit, is to unite consciousness and self-consciousness so that the self becomes one with God's shape, as Hegel says. Quote, spirit lives in the difference of its consciousness and self-consciousness. So the aim of the movement through the series is to cancel this main difference and give the form of self-consciousness to the shape that is the object of consciousness, end quote. What is important is that the series follows the ABC method of the table of contents, a la John Stewart. Thus, as Hegel says, in sum, in natural religion, the first reality, spirit is in the form of consciousness. In the religion of art, the second reality, spirit is in the form of self-consciousness. And in revealed religion, the third reality is the unity of the first two, where the self is as much an immediacy as the immediacy is the self. Here, spirit is in the form of reason and spirit itself. First, the object is a natural object, being immediacy, e.g. light. Second, it is the self, e.g. the statue. And third, it is an actual concrete self, the God-man. But again, as Hegel observes, though here spirit has indeed attained its true shape, namely actual self-consciousness as a human being, the God-man, yet the shape itself and the picture thought are still the unvanquished aspect from which spirit must pass over into the concept, absolute knowledge, in order wholly to resolve therein the form of objectivity in the concept, which equally embraces within itself its own opposite. End quote. So, let's now see how the one spirit gradually comes to know itself and see itself in its object or shape, or how the object of its consciousness becomes an actual self. The goal of religion is spirit, God, the Absolute, knowing itself as spirit. Hence, we begin with spirit, God, knowing itself in the shape of light, then plant and animal deities, then works of art, the sculpture of a god, the hymn, the cult, the gods depicted in the epic, tragedy, comedy, and finally, in the shape of self-consciousness as a human being, the God-man or spirit. Hence, spirit or God is in truth self-consciousness, which is conscious of being all truth and contains all reality within this truth, which is how all religions regard the object they take to be God, the sacred, the holy, the divine.